Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We turn now to poem 301, I Reason, Earth is Short. Now, this is another theodicy, that is to say an attempt to answer the simple question, why must there be pain? Why must there be suffering in this world? The scholar Jane Donahue Eberwein has argued that this is Emily's most, what she calls logically structured poem. Certainly it has the most repetitions, no doubt. And as we get into this poem, we're going to hear echoes from the earlier studies that we have already had. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comments, and if you have, you know that we talk in 303 about our big five. Epistemology, what can you know? We're going to hear about that in this poem. Ontology, who are we? We're going to hear about that in Decay. Psychology, our fears and our motivations of the individual mind. And sociology, the same of the collective mind. And then finally, the word I use, theodicy. The question again of why must there be pain and suffering in the world? Of course, we've talked at length about this already in earlier poems. You're going to hear these repetitions, like for example, but what of that? 3 times we're going to hear it. I reason, 3 times we're going to hear that. When we hear this, but what of that, it's going to be like Emily saying, really nothing that we can do about it, or so what? Some will even say big deal. And the real question of this poem is there an answer at the end at all? We get to, those kinds of questions when we study our Milton's Paradise Lost, or the Book of Job, and other theodicies that we've talked at length about at learnstrong.net. We've given that. Note the trinities of this poem, and I think Emily is doing something quite serious with her trinities here. Why? Because she knows that she's dealing with a question that is often regularly answered through her religious background. Maybe she's not so pleased with the answer she's been given. I think the key of this whole poem, the key word of this poem is in fact reason, as in to think through. I reason, earth is short, and anguish absolute, and many hurt, but what of that? I reason we could die, the best vitality cannot excel decay, but what of that? I reason that in heaven, somehow, it will be even, some new equation given, but what of that? Now, some have seen this poem as very Promethean, very iconoclastic, very much, you're going to tell me, for example, think about Longfellow's Psalm of Life, of course, that poem, a poem that Emily would have known well, right? Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating funeral marches to the grave. In this world's broad field of battle, in the bivouac of life, be not like dumb-driven cattle, be a hero in the strife. Of course, that is what Boethius would call the consolation of philosophy. That ability to say, we can do this, you guys. Emily's got a different opinion in this poem, it seems. First of all, she says, I reason, if I think about it, that earth is short. You'll remember, art is long and time is fleeting, is the way Longfellow was saying in Psalm of Life. Earth is short, anguish, a word we've already seen her play with, absolute, and many hurt. Well, there it is. That's the theodicy question. Why must there be fear? Why must there be pain? Why must there be sorrow in this world? And then she'll come up with, but what of that? In other words, big deal, or there's nothing really that we can say about that. And then our second, I reason we could die. Notice it's not will die. The best vitality cannot excel decay. In other words, it really doesn't matter, as we've often said in 303, how many buns of steel videos you do or surgeries you undergo. Sooner or later, what do we say? Everything sags and bags, right? And there's nothing you can really do about that. But then she'll say, again, the so what? But what of that? And finally, the third reason. I reason that in heaven, that is to say the afterlife, somehow it will be, notice it will be, and notice her use of the word somehow. I can't explain how, but somehow it'll be even some new equation given. And again, her love of mathematical language, scientific and mathematical language, comes back here again. And then she finishes, but what of that? In other words, notice she goes from this earth to heaven, and she says, either direction, it really doesn't matter what kind of explanation is given or equation is given or evenness is explained. In the end, it doesn't matter because there's no answer to the pain and to the suffering of our existence now. At 2a for a message here, I think that her argument is that there are no clear or clean answers to the question of pain and suffering. In other words, her theodicy will move along a continuum, we could argue, where at one extreme of it, it's this. Look, there's a lot of pain and suffering, and many hurt, as she says, but it really doesn't matter. There's no explanation. There's no answer that can be given. And of course, in this moment, she is being iconoclastic to the very Christian faith she was raised in. At 2b, think of the tone here. It is a certain kind of manner. It's quick, it's emphatic, it's near defiance, if not absolute defiance. And then the rhymes, notice, are here kind of dissonant as well, aren't they? For short, absolute hurt, for example, or die, vitality, decay, or heaven even given. In other words, there's no clear rhyme schema. I think she's answering a Longfellow's Psalm of Life with her own poem, and of course in Longfellow and Psalm of Life, you've got that kind of rhythm and rhyme that's going to make that poem kind of a la-ti-da poem, as we've said in a lecture at learnstrong.net on that poem. But here, Emily is playing around the edges of the theodicy question. And of course, at 3a, we mentioned Psalm of Life. But I think, as I said to you guys so many times in these earlier lectures, I think Milton stands behind so much. What is it that he says in the opening lines to justify the ways of God to men? We've given full lectures on all the books of Paradise Lost at learnstrong.net. But I think she's arguing to Milton to say, yeah, I've read it, but I'm not sure you gave me a really good answer. But what of that? Finally, at 3b, to own a poem like this, how is your way to deal with the pain and suffering that we all hurt in life? And to what degree do you have an answer for anguish? And what do you think of Emily's answer or non-answer? Thank you.